This is an amazing vegan restaurant by the name of Little Pine, and it is owned by Moby. So I'm going to meet with Moby and talk about his roots in punk rock. Moby, thank you so much for taking the time and having a tea with me.
Oh, my pleasure.
And giving me opportunity to kind of talk to you about all these things I've wanted to talk to you about for a long time.
Okay, so where should we start?
Well, I guess the best way to start is, can you describe your life kind of prior to, it's like music life, prior to hearing punk and then kind of after that moment happened?
Well, I remember there was like this 1 week where I was first exposed to punk rock, but I didn't know that's what it was because this was 1977.
Mm-hmm.
And I just was like, what? This is so like scary and exciting at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that I wasn't supposed to be a punk rock new wave kid because that meant you'd be ostracized by everyone else in my school.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember listening to some song off the first B-52s album, and I was like, you know what? I have to be honest, I really like this. And then it all either went uphill, it went uphill in terms of music and downhill in terms of social opportunities. You know, like, and it meant like
you picked the wrong trend to try and be cool with.
Yeah, so this was 1979, 1980, and like, I remember my friends and I went to go see Talking Heads in Central Park,
Mm-hmm.
and I bought a t-shirt, and I wore it to school, and I remember like within 2 minutes of being in school wearing a Talking Heads t-shirt, they shoved me into my locker, punched me a few times, and walked on. This was just for wearing a Talking Heads shirt.
Holy shit.
Would have been 1980, I guess. And then, am I rambling on too much?
No, this is awesome.
Okay,
like,
so,
if you're rambling on too much, I'm listening too much then.
So then there was a local station, WNYU,
Yeah.
from NYU.
Mm-hmm.
They had a Tuesday night show called Noise the Show with Tim Summer. And that was my friends and I, like that was our introduction to the hardcore world. Like everybody came on his show, and he would also promote shows. So it was how we found out about like the New York punk rock scene then. And then, now I'm really rambling on, magic happened. Like true, profound magic. These two brothers, Brian and Sean Sheridan, rented a storefront in Stamford, Connecticut, 10 minutes from my house, and turned it into an art gallery punk rock club called Anthrax.
Yep.
And every band stopped there because it was between New York and Boston. And then they also started booking this club called Pogo's in Bridgeport. So between Anthrax and Pogo's, my friends and I, at age 15, got to see everybody from Bad Brains, Circle Jerks, Misfits, Black Flag. Everybody played at one of these two places. Mm-hmm. And then we had all our Connecticut bands,
Mm-hmm.
like Youth of Today with Ray Capo, who started Shelter,
Oh, yeah.
and CIA and Reflex from Pain and Seizure, and all these like tiny, tiny bands, but it was such a weirdly close-knit scene.
So at that point, because obviously Youth of the Day or Violent Children becomes Youth of the Day and becomes
Mm-hmm.
famous for kind of bringing straight edge, not bringing it in, but really establishing it. You're obviously a vegan. At what point did that kind of vegetarian consciousness, vegan consciousness kind of enter? Were you seeing that all? Because Bad Brains were vegan back then.
I remember the first and kind of only punk rock tour I did was 1982 or 83. All the Connecticut bands and Vatican Commandos, we all piled into a van and drove to Akron, Ohio.
Okay.
In one little van, driving for 12 hours to Akron. And I was excited because Akron was the land of Devo and Pere Ubu. And so we played a show in a pizza parlor, and there were more people in the bands than at the show. And we stayed at some anarchist punk rock squat house, and they were all vegans. And at this time, I was a militant McDonald's eater. So I just couldn't be bothered with the vegan stuff, which is ironic, because now I've been a vegan for 28 years. But it's also, straight edge was we had a very loose relationship to straight edge. Like, and I don't want to alienate any straight edge people, because now I'm very straight edge.
Yeah.
But at the time, I really loved Minor Threat. And I really loved the way the X looked on the back of my hand, but I also really loved drinking. So like, the first time I met Ian Mackay, it would have been 1983, I was blind drunk. But I considered myself kind of straight edge because I was like, well, I bought Flex Your Head, so I must be straight edge.
You like the X on the back of the hand.
Yeah.
That's half the battle at that point. So I guess like there's kind of like a consciousness shift at some point for you, I guess, where you're kind of like looking at this hardcore scene, like because Vatican Commandos continues. You leave after the first 7-inch, right?
Yeah, I loved and continue to love hardcore.
Yeah.
Something happened in around 83 or 84, and I remember this actually. There's one night where I went to go see, it was like Murphy's Law, Cro-Mags, Agnostic Front, and in my mind it was when the violence went from being accidental to intentional. Like the violence was okay when it was like you dive off a stage and you fall and you get hurt. Or like someone's jumping off a stage and you get kicked in the head. But then all of a sudden it felt very malicious.
Like that to me is almost the LA influence coming in.
When the punk rock scene in LA was urban, it was bands like X and the Dills and
Screamers,
the Germs.
and
And it was very artistic. And then it became suburban, and that's when it became scary. Like I never stopped liking the music, but I stopped going to shows when it actually became intentionally violent.
Were you playing in AWOL at this point, or was that kind of...
Yeah, even when I was playing in hardcore bands and going to hardcore shows, I was still listening to classical music and still listening to Joy Division and Echo and the Bunnymen. Like I never felt the need to choose one genre at the exclusion of anything else.
Yeah.
Like if you look at flyers from early punk rock bands, like if you've ever seen an early Bad Brains flyer, they call themselves a new wave band, and they have like Izods with the collars up.
Yeah. There's that incredible video of them playing CBGBs and they're all wearing the suits and HR skanking in a suit and stuff.
And even like X, I think when they were looking for a guitar player or a drummer, it said like X, like new wave ? Obviously. So like late 70s, like new wave and punk were sort of roughly the same thing.
When did that shift come when sort of like DJ culture, electronic music culture started entering your, because you've talked about punk and hardcore and new wave, but what was that moment like when that?
It all coexisted in this magical moment in New York from like 79 to like 83, where there are clubs like Peppermint Lounge and Danceteria, like Danceteria where I saw Minor Threat, Bad Brains, Mission of Burma. You would have these different levels. And I remember like very clearly, like you'd go to the basement and watch Bad Brains, and you'd go one flight up and there'd be a reggae DJ. You go one flight up from that and someone would be playing Bauhaus videos. Go one flight up from that, there'd be like a gay disco DJ and then a hip hop DJ above that. And so when you're a 16-year-old kid from the suburbs and you're in New York and it's 1981, everything felt magical. And I think it explains the eclectic, like the ethos of that time was so eclectic. It explains the Beastie Boys. Because the Beastie Boys started out as a punk rock band, but they were going to Danceteria where they were exposed to hip hop.
So I guess that explains your musical ethos now. Like that really goes a long way to kind of explain why you try and bring all these diverse forms of music into what you do.
I guess it's ultimately the utility of music for me is its ability to convey emotion. And I feel like that's sort of irregardless of genre.
Yeah.
Which certainly has led to a lot of confusion over the years, but at this point, I find arbitrary, like if someone is consistently playing jazz for 20 years because they love jazz, great. Or if someone's consistently playing heavy metal for 20 years because they love it, wonderful. But I feel like a lot of musicians end up making like compromised stylistic choices so as to not upset the audience.
Music suffers when the form is privileged over the emotion that's coming across.
And sometimes the form can be so compelling and wonderful.
Well, I don't want to keep you any longer because I could keep you all day and just punish you all day about these stories.
Should we do like a hardcore top 5?
Well, yeah, actually, that would be a great thing. Well, what are some of the bands that really spoke to you or that still speak to you?
So Bad Brains, number 1.
Yeah.
For me, it's Black Flag, number 2. I would put Discharge at number 3. maybe just top whatever.
You avoiding
Void,
there? Yeah.
Minor Threat, Dead Kennedys, Misfits.
Agnostic Front.
This was Vatican Commando's only real claim to fame. Is one of Agnostic Front's first ever shows was opening up for us.
I think you're a pretty big claim to fame too, Moby.
But
I think you're selling yourself short on that one. I think that would be the biggest claim to fame.
So-
and then AF is number 2. This has been awesome, man.
Oh,
Thank you
thanks.
so much.
My pleasure.
Oh, incredible.
That was really fun.